And now a message from McAfee.
Your package couldn't be delivered.
You owe thousands in unpaid tolls!
You want a free gift.
If texts like these sound familiar, McAfee can help. McAfee automatically identifies text and email scams as well as AI-generated audio to help you stay safe. If they're faking it, they're not making it past us. Get award-winning scam detection today. McAfee.com/keepitreal.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
With the power and endurance of Toyota trucks, you can go to the most incredible places, like this valley, where the echo does different voices.
Hello!
Hello! Hello!
We know what we're made of. Toyota trucks.
REI Co-op presents a perfect outdoor moment with the perfect gift. Picture this. You're ripping with your favorite person. Bluebird skies, blower powder, and frankly, you're skiing like legends.
So sick. Another lap?
Thanks to REI's curation, from lid to sticks, you nailed the gift.
No way. How'd you know?
Does it get more perfect than that? Give without guessing. Shop in store or visit rei.com.
All right, and we are live. This is Garrett Chapman here with the Falcons podcast, and welcome. Yeah, give me a follow at GChapATL on Twitter. Go check out all the content that we have coming out. I mean, it's still a busy week. We got a lot to get into here on the show today, though. So make sure to drop a comment in there. Tell us what you want to talk about. If you have anything that you want to dig into specifically, make sure to jump into that live chat, and we'll jump into a Q&A here in just a little bit. But we'll react to what we saw with the Falcons and Jets, 27-24 losers in that one. The Falcons fall to 4-8. We'll talk about three things that I'm going to be focusing on here from now till the end of the season. 5 weeks left between now and the end of the year. And we'll talk a little bit about what we can hope for and what we can look for just as the team kind of finishes up to or gets to the finish line. Let's just put it that way. It's been a disappointing season, and there's no real ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just kind of what the situation is right now for this Falcons team. But welcome in. Welcome. So let's start here with what happened to the Falcons and Jets, and we'll just kind of go from there. It's just more disappointment, and it's more just not a good situation up there at Flowery Branch. And I mean, I'm looking back at this game, and you just have drop passes here from the receiver room. You have Bijan Robinson going for 200 yards of offense, and still somehow you find a way to lose. And I mean, it is just the amalgamation of everything that's gone wrong here for this Falcons team this season. It's all just frustrating as hell. And I mean, a lot of the struggles have become impossible to ignore. You talk about the wide receiver room. You talk about the lack of a true pass catcher without Drake London out there. I don't know why you don't go back to Bijan Robinson. I mean, he's got 200 yards of offense, and you seemingly go away from him late in the game. The defense does its job, but it's special teams, more special teams blunders. And that was the big conversation topic on Monday morning when we got up to Flowery Branch. It's just the fact that you have a lot of problems, you have a lot of issues, and to this point, Raheem Morris has chosen not to do anything about it. In fact, you get into a situation where Ike Hilliard was fired for performance. And we asked him about it. We pushed him on it. Credit to him. He answered the questions. And I mean, he says that Marquise Williams is not going to be fired for performance, even though the performance of that room throughout this season. And look, even if you go to last year, this unit wasn't very good last year. In 2024, it wasn't good. So I don't know what the issue is, but I know that Marquise Williams' job is completely safe. And look, I don't have a vendetta. I don't root for the firing or termination of anybody. And I want to make that very clear. But to this extent, poor performance has consequences. And these are it's just the reality of the NFL. These guys know what they signed up for. But I mean, you cost yourself a lot of points in this game. I mean, you talk about ineffectiveness in kick coverage, where you make the active choice to kick the ball through the end zone, where they get the ball at the 35-yard line, because you do not trust your kick coverage unit to go make a tackle. You don't do it. And you're giving up several yards. I mean, you're averaging 29 yards per return. It's the worst in the NFL. You've given up, I mean, obviously in this one, you give up the 80-plus yard return that sets them up for an easy chip shot field goal, even though your defense comes up and makes a stand. Yeah, I mean, you have the fumbled, the muffed kick on a punt from Jamal Agnew, who has been just a hair-pulling investment by the Falcons this season. And then you have a miss from Zane Gonzalez. I mean, now, granted, the Zane Gonzalez miss is one that you can kind of excuse, not that any of these mistakes or self-inflicted errors are excusable necessarily, but I mean, they missed one too. So I guess it's kind of sort of null and void, but I mean, my God, it was one of those types of games. It was one of those types of games where it is just mind-numbingly frustrating. And you're getting very close to the apathetic fan, unfortunately. And that's just kind of where this team is right now. I think Sunday's game, when you have the Seattle Seahawks coming to town, that's a really good football team. And look, Falcons have a shot to go win. I mean, they've been, and what's one of the most frustrating things about this whole stretch is that they've been in damn near every game they played, ironically, except for the game against the Dolphins. Make that make sense. I mean, whatever. It's just one of those things, I guess. But I mean, when your average losses or your losses are coming by an average of 3.5 points or something. You have 2 overtime losses. You have multiple games where it's come down to the last play of the game. The team's close, but I mean, Caden Ellis said it after the game on Sunday. Close games are what define teams. And to this point, the Falcons are not one of those teams who can get things done in the clutch. And it's frustrating. It makes it even more frustrating because they weren't making the playoffs. Let's just be very real about that. That's kind of, that ship sailed maybe a couple of weeks ago, at this point, 3 weeks ago. The hope was alive. And I think that when you have a team that's as young as the team that Atlanta has, you kind of want to keep that hope in the building, because that keeps guys coming back to work. It keeps guys working. It keeps guys doing everything. And I asked Raheem Morris as much. He said, we're professionals and it's our job to go win and everything. And they're saying all the right things. But this is not a situation that the Falcons find themselves in that's very good. And it's one of those types of situations that gets people fired, you know? And I see Rusty Moore over here. He's over there on YouTube. He just drops it in there. It says, fire everyone. Again, Arthur Blank's got a lot of decisions he has to make. And this is a Falcons team who is not getting the results they need. And it's frustrating too, because John Robert, I see you dropped this question on Facebook. How did Kyle Pitts play? Well, he played really well. It sucks. He led the team in receiving. He's right there with Bijan Robinson, and that gets into one of the biggest issues that I do want to talk about. Because what more can we say about this damn game? What more can we say? You handicap your own freaking team because your special teams is making it hard to win games. You're playing with it. You're literally playing with an arm tied behind your back. It's terrible what this team is having to go through right now. And it's all of it self-inflicted. It's all self-inflicted. And a lot of it, all the other things are injuries, and everything's just mounted up on this team right now. If you have questions, by the way, just drop them into the comments. I'll get to as many of these as I can. Thank you so much to everyone who's jumping in here. But John, to answer your question, Kyle Pitts played well. I'd say that ultimately, I mean, he had a good game. This is his best game of the season. He goes over 80 yards. He leads the team in receiving. He was what the Falcons needed Darnell Mooney to be. And, I mean, he played well. He had the drop late, which unfortunately is going to be the thing that people remember. Got to make that play. Raheem Morris said as much on Monday. It's a tough play. It's a difficult catch. I mean, it's tough, but it's the difference between winning and losing. And then you get into a spot where Darnell Mooney has a drop. David Sills has a drop. All three of them, the ball hits them off the hands. The ball ricochets off their hands. And I don't know what Kirk's supposed to do. Kirk can't do anything. And if you just take away these these drops, that guy probably goes over 300 yards of offense. It's another one of those things, man. I mean, you talk about self-inflicted Errors. Self-inflicted errors. Kyle Pitts ironically played really well today. Robert Archer says Kyle refuses to block. No, that's not true. That's an old thing that people are saying. And sometimes it looked like he was giving half effort, and I know that people looked frustrated with him. I don't think that was the case. I don't think that was the case at all. I know that's a popular narrative. I don't think that he comes back, ultimately. I think that his future is going to be with another team. It's just Kyle Pitts. It's just the situation that he finds himself in, So, I mean, it's just a bad spot here for him. But I do want to continue talking here about this wide receiver room, because you go down this list. When it's not Drake London, who is it? Who is it? I think it's a fair question. And I think ultimately at this point, it's become impossible to ignore the deficiencies that this team has in the wide receiver room. I said it all off season. I talked about it all summer. Everybody who was on this podcast, I've said it multiple times this fall. This wide receiver room is not good enough. I was very worried coming into this season that they were gambling on a lot of guys coming back and repeating some resurgent efforts, right? Well, to this point, you've released a player, you fired the position coach, and it's been a bit of a revolving door in terms of who that wide receiver 3 is, who that wide receiver 4 is. What are you going to do when you need a deep threat? What happens if Drake London gets hurt? What happens if Darnell Mooney gets hurt? Well, we have our answer. And look, injuries are a part of this. The injuries are a massive part of this. I mean, shoot, man, you talk about the team that we're playing here on Sunday. If the Seahawks lose Jackson Smith and Jigba, that derails everything for them. It's huge. It's a massive loss. But at the same time, they got other guys on that offense. They have guys who step in, and the Falcons do too, to some extent, but they just didn't do it this year. And you have a lot of guys who I don't feel like are up to snuff. All due respect to a David Sills. I think he's a good football player. I think he's fine. I don't think he's a wide receiver too. He's not. That's not his job. That's not something he's capable of doing. And shout out to David, because he's probably one of the only people who has stepped up. He's a touchdown in each of his last 2 games. Mind you, those are the first two touchdowns of his career. But when they lost Ray McLeod and they let him go, let me be clear, they didn't have a backfill. They assumed that it was going to be Casey Washington, and Casey Washington has since been a healthy scratch several times, more often than not. And when it's not Drake London, and Drake is great. I love Drake. Drake is the dude on this offense, along with Bijan. Aside from him, this team doesn't really have any options. Bijan and Kyle have played every game this season, and they still trail him in terms of receiving. I mean, but shoot, a lot of people trail him in receiving. I mean, he's 7th, 8th or so, 9th in the entire NFL in receiving, and he's played, in some cases, 3 fewer games than some of these other guys. Before he got hurt, he had a 33% target share. 33%. It's crazy. And you lose a guy like that, it's always going to hurt. Like, you're never going to be able to go out on the trade market, go out and in free agency, and at least in the middle of the season, and go find a guy who's going to be a comp for Drake London. They don't exist. He's a top 5, top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. Top 10 without question. You don't just go find that. But what you can do is you can supplement the depth in the room. And counting on Darnell Mooney to be what he was last year, fine. I get it. And you got unlucky. That's one where you got unlucky, right? I can give them credit for that. You got unlucky. I was high on Darnell. I thought he was going to come in, and I thought he was going to have a great season. But you break your collarbone at the first day of training camp, and then you come back, and then you pull your hamstring, and that's an issue that causes you a lot of problems. And since then, he just hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything. But it's beyond that. That's where I call it borderline malpractice. It's not good. Ray McLeod was a little reckless to think that he was going to be pushing in and doing what he did last year, where he goes off for almost 700 yards of offense. Kadero Hodge, where he comes out and he puts on, he had 200 yards receiving, 150 yards. Aside from that, you're just expecting Casey Washington. You're gambling that Casey Washington comes in and takes a big step forward. And it just doesn't happen. It didn't happen. And the shortcomings of the wide receiver room have played a central role in their offensive issues this season. It's one of the reasons why Penix was struggling this season. You have wide receivers who can't beat man coverage. And if that happens, you're not going to move the football. You're just not. Because then your defenders are going to play man, and then you're just going to get beat. And then you're expecting your quarterback to make heroic throws and everything. Look, and it's a frustrating spot. And on Sunday, you call up Dylan Drummond, and I like Drummond. I think he's a good practice squad player. He gives you a little bit of a speed element that Casey Washington was supposed to. But he's not a viable option. He comes in, he has one catch for 3 yards in this game. It's just, I'm beating a dead horse at this point. All right. I see you guys have some questions in here. I'm not trying to pile on this situation any more than I have to, but this is just a tough spot that the Falcons find themselves in. And I don't think that they supplemented. I think that they did a poor job when it came to roster building on offense because they didn't add anything. Very rarely do you come into a situation where on one side of the ball, you add nothing. And I get it. Ryan Newsel, technically a new starter. He started 6 games for you last year, something like that. Michael Penix, technically a new starter. He started 3 games for you last year. Both closed the season as your guy.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Jay Kelly, the new film from Academy Award nominee Noah Baumbach. George Clooney stars as an actor confronting his past and present on a journey of self-discovery, alongside Adam Sandler as his devoted manager. Critics are calling it a declaration of love to the chaotic art of filmmaking, with the Wall Street Journal praising it as a transcendent comedy drama. Watch Jay Kelly December 5th, only on Netflix.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify, spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
He didn't add anything else. Literally nothing else. And this is just sort of the result. All right, Robert Archer over there on Facebook says, 5 years of not living up to the 4th overall pick shows no desire to play up to his potential. All right, you're still talking about Kyle Pitts. Look, I'm as frustrated as anybody when it comes to Kyle and his production and everything else, especially when you go and look at a guy like a Trey McBride, what he's able to do, where he's top 10 in the NFL in receiving yards, right? That's what you were expecting Kyle Pitts to come in and do. And the ship has sailed on that. It's just not who he's going to be, not here in Atlanta, because he's going to go get a $36 million contract somewhere, 2-year deal or something like that. It's going to be 35, something crazy. Someone's going to pay him. And I just don't think it's going to be here in Atlanta. I think it's just time for him to have a new chapter, and maybe that would be the best thing for him. But again, that's a future problem. That's not something that we need to do right now. Maybe he can play well and finish auditioning for a good spot, but we'll see. Yusu says, hey, Garrett, I asked you a few weeks ago about the vibes in the locker room. You said they were good. What about now? Well, I wasn't there on Sunday because obviously it was up in New York, and I can't travel with the team. I'm just here at home. But when I was there on Monday, it was a noticeably different vibe. And Raheem talked a lot about the hard truths. Those are his words that they had to have, the hard conversations. He kept a lot of those conversations private. He didn't want to share that with the media publicly. But I will say, vibes were not good. There's no laughing. There's no jovial nature. And I think the last time that you asked me this question, I think there was still some underlying confidence, and I'm worried right now about this potentially getting a lot worse. Now, all this can change. They're professionals, and sometimes it's the hangover from getting your ass beat. And that's unfair. Let me reel that back. You didn't get your ass beat. You lost. And You lost to a team an inferior opponent on the road on a last-second field goal, a game that you should have won, but you let slip away. A very common theme here for this team this season. So I want to retract what I just said. I don't want to say that they got their ass beat because they didn't. That's not how it happened. But you lost. And I think that there is a general the vibe in the locker room is not good. I don't think that this locker room felt very confident. I'll get a better feel tomorrow. So Yusuf Russell, I think that's your jam. All right. So 7289. Ask me again on Thursday when we do the pod on Thursday at 6:00. Ask me the same question. Come on back. I'll have a better answer for you, because at this point, it's just the day after a loss in the midst of a frustrating season, and it's hard to get a full gauge. I think if the locker room is still feeling that way on Wednesday or even on Thursday, then that's when we need to start potentially hitting a panic button here, but I'm not there yet. I think it's unfair to them for me to say something like that. So ultimately, I don't think the locker room's in a very good place. And I'm worried about it. Robert on Facebook says, Jets traded everyone away and beat us. Special teams, 32nd in the league to a 2-10 team. This is a spot that the Falcons are in. They cost themselves the game. They lost this game because they beat themselves. It's like tennis when you're serving and you hit the ball right in the net. You can certainly beat yourself if you do that a whole bunch. That's what the Falcons did in this game. That's exactly what they did. They beat themselves. And Raheem said it wasn't a spot where it's necessarily on coaching. He said it wasn't coaching. He said it was a lot more execution based. Either way, the results aren't there. And it's very frustrating, especially when you lose to the team that you lose. All right, Michael 1 Kilo. Got the double heart, man. Always good to see you, man. Always good to see you. Halsey over there on YouTube says, better player, Jalen Walker or Abdul Carter? I think better is relative, especially for a rookie. I would say that Jalen Walker is currently having a better season. I would say that. I would say that James Pierce is having a damn good season too. Abdul Carter is also an objectively dominant freak player, right? He's going to be a long-term fantastic player. He's getting a lot of pressures. It's very similar to what James Pierce was dealing with earlier in the season, Halsey. It's just he's a really good football player. Let's put it that way. He's getting the pressures. His pressure rate's very high. He's right up there with some of the best players in the NFL. But he's just not generating the sacks to the same level. So I love Jalen Walker. I can talk to him specifically just because I cover him. I don't cover Abdul Carter, so I can't I don't go rewatch their film or look at their games or talk to those players, right? So it's hard for me to get a full gauge in the same way that I can for Jalen Walker. But for Walker, this is a guy who, he's progressed. He and James have. And that's one of the things that does get me excited for what the potential of this defense is, even for the remainder of the season, moving into next year. There was a Trayshawn, Falcoholic. He tweeted something, and you should go check it out if you haven't had a chance to. It's an image of James Pierce when he got a sack against the Jets. And it's something that should get Falcons fans really fired up. It should get them really, really fired up. It's James Pierce, Jalen Walker, Brandon Dorlus, Ruka Rororo, four-man rush. Tyrod Taylor takes the snap. Four guys come up. You see, Brandon Dorlus hits the outside shoulder of the right guard and then pushes back in with some ferocity, with some explosiveness, takes on a double team. And what that does is you have a slide right coverage, which I'm assuming that you have Tyrod coming in there and he's sliding the coverage to the right. So that means the right guard's going to take a step. And it's hard for me to do this while I'm sitting down here in my office, but he jumps in there and he takes that step to the right. James Pierce is able to, on the right tackle, as he's dropping back, because Dorlus takes the guard over to the front, right? He takes him over, then it's basically a double team with the center. The right tackle's dropping back. he attacks his outside shoulder and hits him with a chop and then spins it right back inside, right back into Tyrod Taylor. And it's a sack. Generated that on his own. That should get Falcons fans really, really excited. That is not something it's not a stunt. It's not some blitz. It's not some fancy pressure. It's not something that Jeff Ulbrich had to pull out of his bag. It was just your down lineman beating the offensive line 5v4. You're beating him. And that is the progression that this group has showed. And all of those guys are youngsters, first or second year. I think they're all under the age of 24, right? That should get Falcons fans excited. That's what you traded up that pick for, right? You go get that guy. So you talk about Jalen Walker, Abdul Carter. I can't speak on Abdul Carter. I know that Jalen Walker on the other side, he's already an elite run defender for somebody of his stature in the NFL. He's a really good run defender. And you see the edge rush is starting to come along as well. He leads all rookies with 5 sacks. James Pierce is right there with him now. Now, there's still the Browns linebacker. His name is escaping me off the top of my head, but he's currently the overwhelming favorite to go win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'll tell you this much. Jalen Walker and James Pierce, you have foundational pieces of your defense, and you add in Brandon Dorlus and Rukororo, and those are 4 guys who appear to be foundational pieces of this defense. And that is something that does get me excited just moving into the future of this team and what it could look like. You got some dudes, man. They got some dudes. And whether or not they win any awards or anything like that, or defensive rookie of the year, whatever, the all rookie team, I don't really give a damn about any of that. None of it matters. I want this defense to continue to show what it is capable of as we move down the stretch. And you talk about the game on Sunday too, right? So this is a really good Seahawks team. It's a really good Seahawks team. They're atop the NFC standings and one of the top teams in the NFL. And one of the ways that you can mess with a team like this, with a quarterback like Sam Darnold, is to get him some pressure. You get some pressure and put an offensive lineman in Sam Darnold's lap. Hit him with a spin move. Catch him off guard. Knock that ball out of his hands. Sack him. It'll keep you in a football game, and don't be surprised if that's kind of what the Falcons end up doing and sending some extra pressure. Maybe they haven't had to do that quite as much recently. The wins haven't necessarily been there, but the defense has played really well, right? The last 2 games, 3 of your last 4 games, it's your lowest blitz rates of the season. 3 of your 4 lowest blitz rates of the season, your last 3 games. That tells me that you have 4 down linemen that you trust to go make a difference. Starts with what those guys are doing on the outside, but do not forget about what those guys are doing on the inside. All right. I got to nerd out there for a second, so I appreciate that. While we're going, I'm answering all these questions and everything else, so make sure to drop them into the live chat. No matter where you're following the podcast, thank you so much for joining, whether it's Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, or maybe it's Spotify or something after the fact. Make sure to like the video. I really appreciate when you do. We've got almost 100 people across all platforms in the podcast right now, so thank you so much for joining. But please hit that like button. Please subscribe if you have not already. Cost you nothing. We don't send you any emails or anything like that. It just only helps us. And we really appreciate all of you for jumping in. So, and if not, share it with your friends. Really appreciate it. All of you guys. My name is Garrett. This is the Falcons podcast. I'm going to keep answering some of your questions now, and then we can talk a little bit more about kind of where we're going. All right. Taste of Yeet. I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. Some of the names on YouTube, I will. I do my best, and that's all I can do. If I'm reading it incorrectly, I apologize. But he says, I think Raheem is expecting to be fired, but is too loyal to his guys, so he won't push them out to save himself. That's a fair thought. I get what you're saying. I think that's a spot where I think the writing's kind of on the wall at this point, and I think a lot of people kind of know that. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And I'll say again, I don't root for people to be fired. I like Raheem. I like Marquise. I like these guys. But it's just the league that they're in. It's the job that they chose. And it's a job that people get fired a lot. A lot of these guys get hired to be fired. And I think it's a fair point. Just why fire somebody if I think you kind of already know you're running out the clock, and maybe he wasn't. I don't know if he's been informed or anything like that. I can't speak on that, but it's just, it feels like that's where things are going. You put a lot of stock into this season and it just hasn't gone your way, and it's an unfortunate reality because he's a good coach. I think Raheem's a very good coach. I think he's really sharp. I think his players really like him, and it's just a frustrating spot, because I think there's a little bit of bad luck, but bad luck happens in this league. Injuries happen in this league, and you have to be able to adapt to those injuries and to those setbacks. And the Falcons just haven't been able to do that. Sam Klontz over there on YouTube says, can you talk a little bit about etiquette in the press conference rooms? I feel like some of Raheem's answers warranted some pushback. How do you all navigate that? That's a great question, Sam. There is an etiquette. It is a professional environment. It's a place where you want to avoid sparring matches. I don't know if any college football fans out there, the Ben guy or whatever who called, maybe he didn't call Lane Kiffin a hoe, but they called him a hoe. It's like you can't marry a hoe or whatever because a hoe is just whatever. I'm not going to get in too deep into what he said, but what happened at the press conference? He pushed back and there was a little sparring match and they kind of got into it. That's very abnormal for a press conference. Of course, with that, there are some extraneous detail. There are some other side factors that are involved in that, but we do push back. I pushed back on Raheem on Monday. If you go back and listen to the interview, I pushed back several times. Some people do. It happens quite frequently, but it also happens in a professional manner. And in a lot of the times it comes back to us just asking for clarification, making sure that we heard him correctly, making sure that there isn't something. I mean, and Joe Patrick does a really good job over at 92.9 The Game. He does a fantastic job of this. Mark Ramondi does a great job of this. Mark Zeno over at 92.9, he also does a good job of this. He comes in and asks some very difficult questions. To some extent, it's like what I don't know what some people want us to ask necessarily, because it is a professional environment. I'm not going to go in and ask him why he deserves to keep his job or something like that. I mean, I guess theoretically I could, but it's like, it's a disrespectful question. And it's something that, I mean, there are lines in a professional environment, and me getting up there and chastising him and putting on a fan hat or something like that is not my job. It's my job to ask well thought out, researched, and verifiable questions. And we also have stories and other things that we're trying to do. So we want to know, we want to get a quote from the coach and other things like that. So there are a lot of factors that at play, and a lot of different people that are in the room trying to lead things in different ways. Right. And sometimes like on Mondays specifically. So to answer your question, Sam, with, in terms of a different way to answer your question, let's say
Okay, only 10 more presents to wrap. You're almost at the finish line. But first, there, the last one. Enjoy a Coca-Cola for a pause that refreshes.
It's 7v7 soccer. Smaller the pitch, faster the action. The world's elite soccer clubs compete for their share of a massive $5 million prize. Catch World Sevens on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max December 5th through the 7th.
Different days are qualified for different types of questions, right? So on Mondays, that's generally reaction to the day before. So we ask questions about decisions he made. It's a more in-depth version of the post-game press conference. Post-game press conferences, I don't think, are all that great. They don't tell you all that much. They haven't watched the film. It's all gut reactions, and I think that's what it's really for, is for something like that. But as far as nuanced questions and answers and things like that, you're going to get that more on Mondays. Wednesdays is when you start turning the dial forward, and maybe you react to news that came out on Tuesday, because it's a big transactions day on Tuesday, but the media is not up there to ask any questions. So maybe there's a follow-up from something that we thought about from Monday. Maybe there's a transaction that we ask about from Tuesday. But a lot of that is us shifting gears and trying to dig into the matchup at hand. And that's when we talk to coordinators. That's when we talk to starting quarterback. Thursdays, we talk to a defensive player and Marquise Williams. Fridays, it's a lot of injury stuff and things like that. So It just depends, and there's a certain ebb and flow to these press conferences. Just to answer your question, Sam, and I hope that answers your question. It's kind of long-winded, but I do radio, so I'm just kind of a long-winded guy. Mikey says, shout out Falcoholic. Yeah, absolutely. Shout out Falcoholic. Go give them a follow if you don't already. They do a lot of great work. Halsey says, better OC Robinson or Arthur Smith. I mean, I guess you got to say Arthur Smith because he did a lot of his stuff without starting quarterback, but Zach Robinson also, he led this offense to a 6-3 start. Kirk Cousins had an offensive player of the week. He was, this team was clicking. This team was clicking. And if it wasn't for an injury to Kirk Cousins, who knows what this team actually goes out and accomplishes? Because you definitely would have had several more wins factored in there down the stretch, and you probably don't let the division slip away. That's a different season. So again, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you have different personnel groups. I'd say it's hard to really judge them one-to-one because Zach did have a quarterback. Also, Arthur Smith, I mean, yeah, he head coach. There are other quantifiable things in there. I don't know. I'm not a big believer in Zach Robinson, truthfully. So I'd say Arthur Smith because Arthur Smith has more of a track record and stuff like that. Zach Robinson really is 2 years. This year has not been good. And that's really what you can come back to. Joe Mata says Tyler Algier needs more touches. I mean, sure, in a perfect world, game flow matters a lot. I think that in a perfect world, Tyler Algier is touching the ball 10 to 15 times. But it's also a reality, Joe, that if he's touching that ball that many times, you only have so many other touches to hand out. I love the idea of Algier getting a ton of touches and getting to carry the rock a whole bunch and doing everything he can, powering his way through and stuff. And it's great, but you're then taking touches away from a healthy Drake London. You're taking throws away from Kirk Cousins. And I mean, you need those. You're taking touches away from a Kyle Pitts. You're taking touches away from Bijan Robinson. There are a lot of other factors involved here. So it's not always that simple. And you need game flow, you need tempo. It's just all, yes, I agree. I would love for Tyler Algier to get more touches, though. Mikey B says, the dream is Steelers foolishly move on from Tomlin and he and Smith come to Atlanta. Arthur Smith is not coming back to Atlanta. Let's just be really real about that. I would be unbelievably stunned if he came to Atlanta. But I do know that if Tomlin did come to Atlanta, if the Steelers make the decision to move on from Tomlin, I'd say there are a dozen coaches who would lose their jobs in favor of this guy, right? He's one of the top coaches in the NFL. Be damned playoff record, all that other stuff, whatever. There are a lot of factors involved. Tomlin is one of the top coaches in the NFL. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Right? I don't think that they fire him. I really don't. I'd be very surprised if they did. And if they do, I'm sure the Falcons would be very happy to have him. He's a damn good coach. Arthur Smith, though, is not coming back to Atlanta. I would be very, very surprised. Mikey B says, just peep the background. GC, a big Guinness guy. Yeah, I am. I actually love Guinness. Guinness it's not even my favorite beer. I just love the advertising. I just really love the advertising. Yeah, you can see that. I got all four of them. So my birthday's on St. Patrick's Day. So I don't know if you can read that, but it says, happy St. Patrick's Day. Have a Guinness. Yeah, actually one's a Sweetwater up there. I love Sweetwater. Big Sweetwater. I just love beer. But I love the advertising campaigns that the Guinness folks had. Yeah, but it's a lot of fun. Then I got my Braves stuff over there. A lot of World Series things and Hank Aaron, one of the greatest hitters of all time. Baseball guy, but appreciate you, Mikey B. All right. Samuel Davis says now the Falcons get trounced by the Seahawks. Damn. Well, they're not trounced yet. Game's not over. Still got some time, right? They don't even have a lead yet. So slow your roll. Look, this Falcons team, as frustrating as it's been, they went toe-to-toe with the New England Patriots team and were a missed freaking extra point away from sending that game at overtime. You were overtime with the Indianapolis Colts. a team who now you've seen kind of since regress. But that was a team who was at the time, I believe they were like 8-1, 9-1 or something like that, playing over in Berlin. You went to the wire with them. You went to the wire with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers week 1. I mean, I don't, this is the NFL, right? These aren't the Ohio State Buckeyes playing Rutgers, right? This isn't Ohio State playing Purdue, right? This isn't the Big Ten. This isn't the SEC where Georgia's playing Mississippi State. This is not that. This is professional football. They haven't lost yet. They're playing at home. You got a great pass rush that's really, really, really coming into its own. And this team is doing well in that term. But offense needs to figure itself out. Special teams needs to figure itself out. I'd say the defense is doing its job. And, I mean, if you can get Bijan Robinson kind of clicking in the same way that he was clicking in the game up in New York, Falcons will have a chance to win that game. And if you can put Sam Darnold on his butt a couple times, then you'll give yourself a better chance to win that game. But again, game's not happened. Game's not over. I'm not going to pick them to win. Let's be real. But I think that the NFL crazy things happen. Michael Rojas says, I know it's likely that Tyler Algier will walk. But what kind of contract do you believe it's possible for him to return? Great question. I think he's going to command a good chunk of change. It's not going to be a prohibitive sum, but it's one that likely would be in this reality. I mean, look, because you're going to have to pay Drake London. I think if the Falcons are smart, they're going to try and sign him to an extension this offseason. Go ahead and get ahead of it. Once you clear some of the money from Kirk Cousins' contract, you funnel a lot of that into to Drake London. He's got to be here. And you don't want him playing in a contract year. I just don't think that he's not going to be happy with that. He wants his money, so go ahead and pay him. But you only have so much money to go around at that point. It's just difficult for me to see the Falcons paying a backup running back $7 million. It's a tough spot for me. Maybe they can get into, because I think he might be able to be getting upwards of $8 million a year, probably. I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I think that that's probably what he'd be comfortably fetching. Again, I don't know the actual physical contracts. That's actually an interesting thing. I might do a piece on that. I might actually dig into that a little bit more. That's a good question. Just kind of taking a look at some of what these contracts could look like and seeing what free agents. Michael, that's a good idea. I appreciate you. That's a good one. All right. So I'm going to come back to that, Michael. I appreciate you there. Make sure to follow at GChapATL. I'm going to have something coming out on that at some point soon, because I think you got my gears turning up there. So there are a lot of free agents that the Falcons could be seeing go. And I think that there are some who they would like to stay. So I will do something on that. I like that. All right. So Terry Clark says, when do we see the reset? We're losing to the Jets after they traded their best picks for assets. Need to recoup some picks if you're protecting the franchise. Well, it won't be with this team. Obviously, the trade deadline's passed. You're not going to be getting anything this year. You're not going to be moving any pieces, and you're not trading Bijan Robinson. I don't get that idea. He's one of the best players in the NFL, and you would not trade somebody in their prime, because at that point, you get a young quarterback in here. You get Michael Penix back from injury. You get whoever's taking snaps for you next year, a quarterback. You get him in here with Drake London. Hopefully, you give him that extension. You find someone to play tight end. You figure out the rest of the receiving core. This team is not all that far necessarily. It's just you have some contracts that you have to figure your way out of. And I mean, you don't trade away great picks. You just have to hit your picks in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round. That's the biggest thing. Falcons just missed on a lot of those picks. So it just seems like a lot of your best players are just expensive, and you have a lot of guys that you brought in through free agency, and you don't have a lot of tangible rookie contracts that are making a big, big impact on your team. And it's a frustrating spot for this team. They have some good rookies this year, but you have a guy like Arnold Ebiketie who's just didn't really fully put all the pieces together, right? He might be back next year. I don't know. I don't think he will. Troy Anderson, who's completely gone. I mean, you have entire draft classes that have just been washed by the wayside. So the most important thing is that they have to hit on those picks. They have to hit on those picks. And it looks like they did this year. But again, we shall see. Mike B hits you the 6-7. All right, folks. Well, let's probably put I've kind of dug into a lot of the stuff that I really wanted to. Biggest thing was harping on the wide receiver room, talking a little bit about what the rest of the season could entail. I mean, not a lot of wins. I don't think it's one of those things where this team is going to be judged on wins anymore. You're going to be judged on some development. So if you're trying to take something positive, I'm going to look and see what Drake London looks like when he comes back from injury. There's a chance that it might be on Sunday. And for anybody who says just wrap him in bubble wrap and stick him on the bench or whatever, this guy's a competitor. He has contract incentives that say that he should be playing, because then he can go make more money, and we want our guys to make money, right? So, especially when it doesn't come out on the cap. But that's one of those things where if these guys can play, they will. So how does Drake London look like? What does he look like when he comes back from injury? How do they continue getting the ball to Bijan Robinson? How does this pass rush continue to evolve? Do you see them continue to do these 4-man rushes? Do you see Brandon Dorless continuing his ascent? Because this guy's got 6 sacks right now. He's getting close to being the first double-digit sacker this team has had in almost a decade. It's crazy to think it's been that long. Xavier Watts is another player you want to see continue to develop. D. Alford, maybe Kobe Bryant. That's a name that a lot of people really, really big on for a long time, all summer. He's on this roster now. So he's able to come in and potentially make an impact. Does he? What does he actually look like? So there are some things here that the Falcons can look forward to. Unfortunately, it's just not going to be another postseason berth. Sucks. And it's very frustrating. And it's just kind of where this team finds itself. But appreciate all the folks who jumped into the podcast today. I really do appreciate it. Make sure to give me a follow at GChapATL. We do this every single Monday or Tuesday and Thursday. Scott, he's with you on Mondays and Wednesdays. But we'll get in here, talk a little Falcons football, even if it's not awesome, because the stories today weren't exactly the most fun, but it's kind of where this Falcons franchise finds itself right now. Not a lot of fun when you lose to the Jets. It's just the nature of the beast. But we'll talk a little bit more about what we can expect coming up on Sunday here in Week 14. It's the Seattle Seahawks at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'll be there, and I will be talking to you, the wonderful fans of the Atlanta Falcons, when we get back on Thursday. So make sure to give me a follow at GChapATL. Set that calendar reminder and jump in here with us. We really appreciate you. Until next time, my name is Garrett. This is the Falcons Podcast. Go Falcons.